Hello, in this section we'll be talking about the advanced settings associated with each track. To access these settings, simply select the song and hit the Advanced button, or right-click and hit Advanced from the drop-down menu. The bottom portion of this new window is dedicated to the track marks, while the top portion has your settings. This group, the fade settings, is what happens when you fade out the track. You have the option of enabling or disabling the fade itself, and having the next track play automatically when the fade is finished. Autoplay next track under track settings has the next track play when this one has finished playing naturally, that is, the duration has elapsed. And you also have the option of having this current track play automatically anytime it is queued up to. To the right of that, you have your generic volume for this song, ranging anywhere between 0 and 100. The rest of this, like I said before, is dedicated to the tracks. You have your track marks list, which contains all your marks for this track. You have your notes field that contains the notes for this particular track, and this will be displayed on the playback window in the third element. You have your edit window for the current mark. You have your track control and associated buttons, and you have the media timeline. The timeline is very important because it allows you to have complete control over the placement and have a visual representation of where you are in your tracks and where your marks are. To the right of the timeline, you have your zoom in and zoom out buttons. So I'm going to zoom in all the way. Also, these blue lines are the waveform visualizations, and they were loaded in from File. If you have not created the waveform yet, they will be generated as soon as you open this track. So let's add a mark. But first, what exactly is a mark? A mark is a simple action that occurs at a specific amount in time. MediaStar allows you to have a mark in up to 1/100th of a second accuracy. And marks range anywhere between pauses to turning something on or off, such as a camera, a picture, or turning on an easy DMX scene. So to add a mark, you could do one of two things. You could either right-click in the track marks list and select New Mark, or you can find the time in the timeline and notice that when you mouse over the timeline, a tooltip gives you the current time of where you're at, and then right-click and select the mark that you want. When you select the mark that you want, you'll notice that a little rectangle appears in the timeline. The scrubber moves to the position. It is added to the track marks list, and it is selected for editing. Let's talk about the different types of marks that we actually have. We have a pause, which is a simple pause. We have a hard pause. What hard pauses are is it essentially divides your track into multiple subtracks. And hard pauses are very useful if you have long media, which you kind of want to subdivide, but you don't want to physically split. And we'll go over hard pauses later on in a second. You have outputs, which are proprietary wireless receivers that have 8 channels that you could use to turn something on or off or move a servo. You have your easy DMX on and off, which controls our own DMX software solution. You have the DMX all off, which would turn all the macros that you have on off. And you have your easy DMX blackout, which immediately turns off everything. You have your show express DMX mark. You have a note mark. And what a note mark is anytime that mark is reached, the note field flashes black to white to give a stagehand or someone backstage an indication to do something right away. You have the show image and hide image, which is fairly self-explanatory. You have show camera and hide camera, which is also fairly self-explanatory. And you have the volume mark. The volume mark allows you to fade down to a certain volume at a specific point in time. And it's kind of better than actually going in and editing the track itself, because if you do that too many times, you kind of lose your granularity and amplitude and how it sounds. This is generally used for when you want to talk over a track at a specific amount in time. That way you could have the music fade down, you could say what you want, and you could have the music fade back up. And then you have the custom software 1 and 2 marks, which are rarely used. If you want to use custom software, please contact support and we'll guide you through the rest of the process. Now, some marks have a sub-action. For example, a pause mark has no sub-actions because it's a simple pause, but an output has 8 channels. So for outputs, you would select the channels. For easy DMX, you would select the actual seat names. Now, to actually obtain the scene names from EasyDMX, EasyDMX has to be open before MediaStar. And also, every time you enter the advanced settings, the scene names are updated. So that way, if you are working on something and you change something in EasyDMX later, you don't have to restart MediaStar to accomplish the process. And this goes on for other marks as well. Obviously, for show image, you have to select an image. And for volume, you have to select the volume that you want to fade to. So, like I said before, marks have sub 100-second accuracy. I might add another mark, but let's say I misclicked and I didn't get exactly what I wanted. Let's say I wanted this at 2 seconds and 75 milliseconds, or 750 milliseconds. Obviously, sometimes it might be kind of hard to get it exactly where you want it, so you're actually able to type in the number that you want. Now, the formatting is minutes, colon, seconds, period, and the amount of milliseconds. So in this case, it's going to be 2.75. Oops. Click anywhere else, and the pause is changed to that time. Now, once you have all your marks in and your settings saved, you probably want to hit the apply button to save everything to file, just so that you don't lose any of your changes if something were to happen. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. Then, what I recommend is zooming out on the timeline, just to give yourself a little bit more time to look at, and then pressing the rewind and play. What this will do is this will rewind and play from the very beginning. You'll notice in this case, at 2.75 seconds, we're going to go ahead and pause. You'll see as we're playing, the scrubber moves and the time updates. This is the current time that you're at / the total time of the song. So you'll notice that we stopped exactly where we should have. For demonstration, let me change this to a hard pause and place it at about 30 seconds. Now, if I were to play it and then fade it using the next or fade, the volume would decrease, and since we have a hard pause, it would automatically jump to that hard pause. So instead of going to the next track, you're able to start in the middle of your current track, and it's essentially subdividing it into multiple pieces. Now, hitting next fade again will bring it to the beginning of the track because there are no hard pauses after the current one. Previous and rewind does pretty much the same thing. It goes to the previous hard mark or rewinds it. Play plays the track, pause pauses the track. Also, you can play and pause using the spacebar. For added feature, we have added an edit copy settings so that you can copy all of the marks, all of the settings from one track to another. That way, it's very easy for you to duplicate all your efforts without having to recreate all of your marks. Also, you have a generate peaks, which regenerates the audio waveform in the chance that the track itself changed if you overrode it with another track, or if something happened to the waveform itself. Once you're done, simply hit the OK to close this window, or if you made some changes but you don't like them, simply hit cancel and they will not be saved. This concludes this tutorial.